It never fails. Never fails. You go to do your podcast and you're like, this mic doesn't sound good right now, but whatever. I'm in the back in the garage, so I'm back in the heat. It's 96 degrees at like 11 o'clock. And ow, pain. So this episode will actually be limited by how much my endurance can help me hang in there, because it's already getting hot in here. It's getting hot. No, that's not an option. Anyway, I'm gonna do some. I don't know. Is it fun? It's not. Is this fun anymore? It's not. I'm not having a good time doing it, but I also feel like I kind of have to get all this shit off my chest. And you guys know how I feel about that kind of thing. You got to do what you got to do, right? You have a voice. Use it. So let's talk gerrymander. Because fuck. Welcome back to Trent Takes On 2.0. I want to tell, I'm Trent, by the way, I'm the Trent of Trent Takes On. I want to tell a little story about one of the things I used to do. Between the original Trent Takes On podcast, which was not, it was just Trent Takes On. I had no 1.0 in front. This is Trent 2.0, Trent Takes On 2.0. Between the two Trent Takes Ons, I did another podcast called Clippers 9450. It was a show devoted to the Los Angeles Clippers basketball team. And one of the things I did, I went all out to make this thing just fun. I had different sound effects. I had different segments, like the Nick Batum player of the game. I had a segment that I did often called Nostratrentus, which was where I foretold the future. And I thought it was a lot of fun. I did, different voices and things like that. I had an invisible producer on the show. Anywho, Tom Hingis was not real, by the way. If you listen to that show and now you listen to this, you'll be like, yeah, okay. Anyway, I did Nostratrentus because I was like, the joke was I could see the future. And I was reminded of that while I was sitting here thinking, so many of the things that I have talked about on this pod within 2 weeks become a major story. Like, hey, I'm not really following the news. I'm kind of in the front edge of it. Like, I'll hear a story and I'll think, oh, that's going to be big. That's going to be big very shortly. And then, later on it gets big. And that's cool. I mean, maybe I do have a nose for this. Who knows? A lot of news stories out about AI and how poorly it's performing. Called that. Stories about, the weaponization of the United States military in cities. Specifically, it's DC this time, which is at a unique disadvantage because it doesn't have a state. Doesn't have the same protections as being a state does. Like California has protections from the federal government. DC, it's a different animal. So, anyway, a lot of the things that I've talked about in the past keep coming back up. Back in Trent Takes On, the original podcast, I actually did an entire episode on gerrymandering. This was like 5 years ago, shortly after the census came out and states were drawing their maps after the 2020 census, which would have been like 2021. And I talked about gerrymandering and how bad it is, not just for democracy itself, allowing representatives to pick who votes in their districts is fucking gross. A lot of states, a lot of blue states, a lot of places have decided we would do our own independent district redistricting commissions, which would mean that commissions would be formed of people from every party available, Republican, Democrats, a lot of independents, other, big committees that would get together, and they would district the state to make the districts as competitive as they could. And one of the reasons that you want competitive districts is when you have competitive districts, you get the best representatives. Because if a district is 75% conservative, 75% Republican voter registration, 75% Republican voters, well, basically whoever wins the primary, the Republican primary, will win the general election because we have a polarized two-party system. But if you've got 75% of that district is Republican, the strategy in the election is not to worry about the general election, but to run as far right as you can in the primary to gobble up the automatic voters and let the squishy voters fall to the other guys. Go get the hardest core. That's what it leads to, extremism. Gerrymandering opens the door to the worst candidate winning the district, the most extreme candidates winning the district. And if your party's extremes are on the Democratic side, our extremes are, we really want to tax the rich and, increase competition in the markets. That's what real capitalism is, by the way, right? It's the market. It's not the business. It's not the free business. It's the free market. Free markets, if you increase, competition inside the market, then the consumers benefit, the end users benefit, the society as a whole benefits. It also makes you a better company to work for. It ups the ante. If there's more competition, there's more competition for employees. All of it's good. More competition is a good thing. Parity in professional sports leads to different teams having a chance to win, titles and things like that. And we see that as a good thing. Usually there are some people who just prefer dynasties, but those are the people who are fans of said dynasty. I consider them the same thing as the most radical of political figures. Like, everybody fascist is good. No, it's not. It's bad. But anyway, competition is good. And on the left, the furthest radical people are talking about things like universal basic income. They're talking about things like decriminalizing certain drug offenses, nonviolent offenses, nonviolent drug offenses. Like if you're just using drugs, why is that criminalized? We should be treating the drug epidemic. Easy for you to say. Treat the drug epidemic as a health issue, not a criminal issue. That's crazy leftist progressive thinking. On the right, the craziest people on the right are fascists who are like, anybody who's not white doesn't belong in this country, and women need to be quiet and just be, broodmares who stay at home and do what we tell them to do. See, that's the fascist side of things. And we're going to use the military to maintain control over everything. And we're going to tell you what you can read. We're going to tell you what you can't read. We're going to tell you what you can watch on television. We're going to tell you what you can't watch on television. We're going to tell the newspapers what they can or can't print. We're going to tell the news organizations what they can, the questions they can or can't ask. It's fascism. That's fascism, and that's what the far right wants to do. Now, for the record, I think it's fucking hilarious. Hilarious beyond hilarious what Gavin Newsom, my governor, is doing. He is trolling Donald Trump on social media constantly he's not really trolling Donald Trump, actually. He is mimicking Donald Trump's ridiculous, childish, bullshit style of social media post. All caps, crazy exclamation points, his specific pattern of calling people names and stuff like that. Newsom's doing the same thing, and the entire MAGA right is losing their collective shit over it because they can't handle it. Bullies can't take being punched in the mouth. They don't like it. Bullies don't like being called names, and that's what Gavin Newsom's doing. Hey, you guys are a bunch of babies. Now, it doesn't take much to to draw these two conclusions. Look at what the right is doing over the rebranding of Cracker Barrel. The right somehow have decided that Cracker Barrel is like going woke by changing its logo and taking the old guy in the barrel out of their logo, and now it's just, Cracker Barrel in an oval, and like they're redoing some of their restaurants. They're making them more lit up. There's more lighting, more natural lighting, more windows. Like they're opening the doors a little bit and making it brighter and more accessible. And that means that the right calls it woke because they don't understand it and they don't like it. And if they don't like it, you can't do it. So they're throwing a shit fit and they're going to boycott Cracker Barrel for a rebrand, which goes to the point. I remember when the right used to scream at the top of their lungs nonstop about fucking cancel culture and how dangerous it was. Cancel culture, they're canceling people. You motherfuckers cancel people all the time. You have an entire nation of conservative assholes boycotting Bud Light because they had the gall to support a trans influencer for a second. I mean, seriously. Who are the fucking snowflakes? Who are the snowflakes here? You want to tell people what they can and can't read, what teachers can and can't teach. Ryan Walters, the superintendent of schools in Oklahoma, who I fucking hate, who's, by the way, 3 years younger than me, piece of shit. Ryan Walters is now launching a purity test for teachers coming from blue states because he wants to make sure that they have conservative ideology before they become a public school teacher in the state of Oklahoma. That's a real fucking thing. This is the same guy that wants a Bible, not just any Bible, a Trump Bible, in every classroom in the state of Oklahoma. And he wants it used as a teaching material. He also wants every teacher, they've actually passed this too, every teacher has to teach the 2020 election as having massive irregularities and that Donald Trump won. I keep up with this shit because I'm from Oklahoma. I'm not proud of it anymore. It's a disgusting state now. It's disgusting. Purity tests for teachers. Who are the snowflakes? Who are the snowflakes? Now the Trump regime is deciding that it's going after museums for how they portray slavery. They want them to portray slavery as not that bad. It turns out Donald Trump has been attending PragerU online. Somebody has turned this guy on to the fact that there's this online fake university. They call themselves PragerU. It's not even a fucking school. They just produce videos for indoctrination into conservative Christian culture. Ugh. PragerU. Terrifying. They're talking about using PragerU on PBS. Yeah. So, gerrymandering is bad. And the snowflakes behind it are throwing a fit. And here we are. This is where we are. I bring up the Gavin Newsom because it was the gerrymandering thing that has thrust him into the national spotlight. Texas was called upon by the Mad King Donald to redraw their congressional maps to get him 5 extra seats in the House of Representatives. He did this on camera, right on live in front of everybody. God in the world. Really. Of course, they've been talking about it on the phone, so he was just reporting what had actually already happened. And Governor Abbott, who has dreams, Greg Abbott has dreams of someday becoming president. Fuck that guy. You're not going to inherit MAGA. You're not. You're not. You have the charisma of a stone. And not even a good stone. Just like a big fat fucking rock. You suck, Governor Greg Abbott. You suck. You're mean and evil for the sake of being mean and evil, and you're not even charismatic enough to make people chuckle. Okay? Maybe you should try painting your face orange and dyeing your hair blonde. That's what I would go with. And ditch those spectacles. They make you look like a loser. So, the Mad King tells one of his states to get him 5 extra seats in the House of Representatives. And they did it. And the Texas Democrats are... the Texas State House is so gerrymandered that they almost have a supermajority. So the Texas Democrats had to unite and leave the state. The assembly members, the Texas assembly members who make $600 a month doing this job, just got fined $500 a day for not being at the special session. Because when they left the state, they denied them a quorum. There's this thing in the Texas Constitution that requires that you have to have 2/3 of the assembly available to do any business at all. So they left the state to raise awareness. And in doing so, they brought California into the fight. And Gavin Newsom said, if they do that, we're going to redraw our maps to give the Democrats 5 more seats. And the difference is we're only going to do it if they do it first. And by God, they did it first. And by God, Gavin Newsom, they signed that sumbitch the day after Texas signed theirs. Now, the difference between the Texas one and the California gerrymander, the Texas gerrymander was done by an incredibly gerrymandered assembly, state assembly and state senate, that wildly benefits Republicans, to further dilute the voices of minorities. Now, in the state of Texas, a Latino vote is worth 1/3 of a white vote, because of the way they've distributed where the Latino votes are going to be centered. The black vote is now worth 1/5 of a white vote because of the way they have redrawn these maps. Basically, wildly diluting the voting power of people of color, Latino or black. It's a blatant violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which the Supreme Court of the United States has been basically chewing away at for ages. And just a few years ago, they decided that partisan gerrymandering, in other words, gerrymandering just because we're Republican or Democrat, I want all the Democrats in this place, I want all the Republicans in this place, is okay. In spite of the fact that the racial makeup of each party is so blatantly obvious, 83% of black voters vote Democrat. So when you dilute their voting power by moving them around, you're not partisan gerrymandering. You're racially gerrymandering, which was expressly prohibited in the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But they've decided that that's okay now because, racism doesn't exist anymore, according to John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. He's full of shit, by the way. Gerrymandering is awful, and this race to the bottom only leads to more and more extremism. Now, here's the fun part. In order to redraw your maps to gain more seats, you have to move Republican voters from very safe districts into more swingy districts or into Democratic districts. And that weakens your power in that original Republican stronghold, that safe district. And it takes it from safe Republican to lean Republican. Just to take, a lean Democrat seat and make it a lean Republican seat. Now here's the fun part. In a wave election, in other words, when the out of power party has a wave election, that means that they pick up more seats than usual. The last time we had a what was it called? What is this called? Midterm during a Trump presidency. That was 2018. And the Democrats picked up 63 seats. I believe that's correct. Or was it 43? 43 seats, because the Republicans picked up 63 in Obama's first midterm, right after the Affordable Care Act passed. So it's 43 seats, 42 or 43. I can't remember which number exactly, but it was over 40 seats. If the Democrats pick up over 40 seats this time, they'll be in power. They only need to pick up 3. All right? That's the actual raw math. You have to change 3, you have to win three extra seats. Now, Texas is trying to gerrymander that number to 8. And in California, we are going to have a special election to whether or not to adopt a set of maps that would add an additional 5 seats to the Democratic side of the ledger by moving voters around in our state. Now, ours are temporary until the next redistricting in 2030. We're setting aside the special election is to set aside the independent districting council, independent districting board. I forget what it's called, but it's independent districting. We're going to set that aside until 2031, which would be when we get the results of the 2030 census. And we redistrict them back in the normal way. Texas, their version, does not go before the people. They don't care. They don't give a flying fuck what you think. They want power for power's sake, and that's how it works. Here, in Democratic California, they're going to ask the entire state whether or not we want to do this. I'm voting yes. I can tell you that right now. I already know. I already understand this thing. Yes, you have to fight them on their terms. You can't back down. You can't give them an inch. They'll take a yard. Look at what they're doing already. It's terrible. So, gerrymandering is bad. There was this bill that came before the entire Senate, House, back when the Democrats had a 51-49 Senate lead and had the House of Representatives. They passed this thing called House Bill 1, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, that would have outlawed partisan gerrymandering and would have given every state in the union funds to create independent districting councils or commissions, and we would have independent redistricting in every state across the country, and we would have better outcomes, better leaders, fewer crazy people. And that passed the House of Representatives with zero Republican votes. And it failed to break the filibuster in the Senate because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema refused to basically put the filibuster aside for this bill. So they used an anti-democratic means, the filibuster, to stop a democratic voter protection law, which it would have changed voter registration rules. It would have basically set guidelines on how far the states could go to limit voter registration, how far the states could go to limit the way that they purge their voter rolls. In other words, remove voters from the voter registration rules. Because if you're not a registered voter, you can't cast a ballot. Some places have same-day registration, like the state of California. Some places don't. Some places are now instituting automatic voter registration, like the state of Massachusetts has automatic voter registration now. On the day you turn 18, bang, you are officially a registered voter. And they do that through your ID / DMV records. Cool, huh? They partner with the schools and everything. It's pretty neat. Automatic voter registration. We can pass those incredibly important safeguards to our democracy if we ever get back in charge. In fact, it's kind of a necessity. Otherwise, what the fuck is the point? This is just going to happen again. We have got to restore some sort of sanity to the system. What's going on right now is an authoritarian takeover of our country. Troops in the streets enforcing quote-unquote laws, they're not, is not okay. It's an intimidation tactic, and it's also against the Posse Comitatus Act. Now, There may be a loophole in posse comitatus because of the fact that Washington, D.C. is not a state. Ugh. I don't know how the hell we're supposed to deal with that. It just makes me sick. I just actually, like, my chest exploded a little bit. That was like a belch. That was awful. We are in a bad way because we can't deal with this DC thing. There's no way to deal with it. Now, for the record, DC wants to be a state. They deserve to be a state. That's 800,000 Americans with no representation whatsoever, aside from an actual proxy vote that doesn't actually count in the House of Representatives. Those 800,000 people are taxed with no representation. The thing that we were so upset about that we created this country. There are more people in Washington, D.C. than there are in the state of Wyoming. Just for fun. And the actual economic output of Washington, D.C. is actually quite high. There's a lot of money in Washington, D.C. It's to do with the fact that that's where the seat of the government is. Should it be its own state? I think so. I think it sucks that those people don't have any representation at all. But they have to live there. They work there. They, pay taxes there. Oh. Anyway. Martial law is not a good thing. You don't ever want to have the military enforcing laws on your soil, especially when your country is this big and your military is this big and powerful. What Donald Trump and the regime are doing is they are destroying the lines between the different agencies that enforce different types of laws. From Immigrations and Custom Enforcement, who are supposed to enforce only immigration law, to the Federal Bureau of Investigations, which has a very specialized set of things that it's supposed to do, including interstate crime, to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Yeah, theirs is in their name, ATF. It's in their name, alcohol, tobacco, firearms. If it's not one of those three things, it probably falls under somebody else's purview. They actually have explosives too. They're blurring all the lines between them all, and they're just calling them law enforcement. They're just calling them ICE agents. Oh, Border and Customs Patrol. Border Patrol, Customs, Border Patrol. Customs and Border Patrol. I'll get there eventually. They're not even supposed to leave the border unless they're at an airport doing customs work on people who fly in. And anyway, what the Trump regime is doing is they're blending all those things together. It's all just one giant police force, federal officer police force. And they're wearing masks and they don't identify themselves and they all look like they're big, fat, out of shape white dudes. That's what it looks like. They're lowering all of their standards for recruitment because they can't get recruits because people with a good heart, a good soul, and good minds look at this and go, that's not fucking right and I don't want to be a part of it. So what do? They offered a $50,000 sign-up bonus to join ICE and $60,000 in student loan repayment. Ironically, from the same people who refused to do student loan repayment for fucking anybody. But this student loan repayment's okay, They've canceled student loan repayment for certain programs that forgive your student loan if you work for the federal government. Fuck that. They don't want to do that anymore. Service used to mean something. Now it means not service to the country, but service to the mad king. Service to the regime. Woo! And I hate to tell everyone this. I'm sorry. I actually enjoy telling everyone this. Donald Trump is not eternal. This is not a forever president. He may be forever for his life, but his life won't be eternal. There will come a day when someone else has to take the reins. And that person will be completely unprepared for it. Completely. And there will be fighting and power struggles and it'll be just like when the Roman Empire fell. It'll be a mess. Unless he leaves peacefully, which honestly, judging from everything we've seen so far, I think it's just a farcical belief. He's not going anywhere unless he's forced. He believes he was elected king. It's how he acts. It's how he proclaims everything. He's going to do away with mail-in voting he's just going to sign an executive order and say, no more mail-in. That's not how laws work. That's not a law. You have no business telling states how to run elections from the president's desk. You don't have any business doing that. Congress can pass guideline laws that you can then sign and enforce, like, I don't know, the Voting Rights Act. But you cannot, by executive fiat, decide who can and can't vote and how. And that's what he's decided he's going to try to do. Well, no. No, you may not. It's pretty straightforward. States run elections. And they run them the way they fucking want to. Do Republicans like the way California runs elections? No. It takes a long time to count all these fucking ballots. But we get it done eventually and get it done right. Do I like the way Kentucky runs their elections? No. Why don't I like that? Because they don't do any paper balloting. In the state of Kentucky, you have to vote on a machine that then apparently we all just trust. And they're not the only ones that do it that way. There are others. I'm just saying, vote by mail, strangely enough, is the only form of voting where you definitely have a paper proof, an actual hard copy proof of voter intent. Wow. We definitely have that when people vote by mail. Really, really hard to rig or cheat an election using mail-in ballots. As long as you're not stealing them. Whoa! If they get processed, which they do, for the most part, there's about 8 million spoiled ballots every presidential election, according to election specialist Greg Palast, who really has made a lifetime of studying this shit. And those 8 million spoiled ballots are probably what have kept Democrats from winning the White House every year since Bill Clinton. Yeah. That's actually not that surprising. Most spoiled ballots come from heavy mail-in states, and most of them actually come from heavy urban areas, like big cities. Detroit always has like mountains of spoiled ballots that they throw out because people forget to sign the outside envelope, which is bad. You can't do that. But a lot of them are spoiled for all kinds of weird reasons. And like the machine can't pick up a specific dot, so it just throws out the entire ballot as opposed to picking up everything except that specific race. You know, because you can't determine the voter's intent in that one spot, they spoil the whole ballot. And a lot of states do that, and that's not good. Anyway, if all of those ballots actually get counted, you probably have different outcomes. Probably have more Democratic leadership. Mail-in voting is safe. Trump was convinced by Vladimir Putin that you can't have a legitimate election if mail-in ballots are used. Over 30 countries we consider highly evolved democratic countries use mail-in voting all across Europe. Ironically, even Russia uses mail-in voting. So I guess in one case, Putin's telling the truth. Of course, is it really rigging the election when you just kill your opposition or have them imprisoned? And I can tell you this much. Any election that shows 80% of people support the man who tortures and kills his political adversaries and is kind of proud of it, it's That's not a legitimate election. Vladimir Putin is, yeah. Anyway. These are tough times. This gerrymander thing could turn into a dummy mander because they dilute their own voting power so much that if there is a wave election, Democrats could win more than 40 seats, could win 60 seats, could win 80 seats, could take control of the Senate. It's possible. It's unlikely, but it's possible. There's some excellent Democratic candidates running against Republican incumbents in places like Ohio, where former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown is running again. He is one of the best senators that state's ever had. He's got a chance. How about North Carolina? Former Governor Roy Cooper is running for Senate in North Carolina to replace the retiring Tom Tillis. Be a huge pickup. It's a difficult map in the Senate, but it's possible. And you can't gerrymander a statewide race. You can, however, spoil enough ballots from urban areas to, you know what? That's tinfoil hat conspiracy thinking, isn't it? I like to talk every week and say there's positive, there's things we can do, and there are things we can do, and there are things you should do. You should always make sure that you yourself are registered to vote, and that everyone that you know that votes the same way you do or that would vote the same way you do is also registered to vote. Registering to vote is easy. Checking your registration is easy in most states. In some states, it's a little more difficult because the secretaries of states of those places can be real assholes and not run an efficient website. But in California, it's super easy. In most states, it's super easy to register to vote and to check your registration status, and you should do both. And not just for you, for your friends. Sit down and have that discussion with them. Look, let's save this world together. And when I say let's save this world together, here's what I mean. In 2024 to 2025, the last 12 months rolling, China has increased their solar energy production by 50%. They are leading the world in solar energy production. And in their last 12 months rolling, they have produced the electricity equivalent of 27% of the total United States usage for the year. Do you realize what a game changer that would be if we could produce 27% of our annual usage with solar alone? Electricity bills would plummet. We would be able to afford our energy bills. We could run the air conditioner. I could put a freezer in my garage, which I can't currently do because instead of embracing renewable energy sources, the Trump regime is destroying renewable energy businesses. They've taken all of the subsidies away from all of the solar and wind companies in the United States. They've taken away all of the subsidies, all of the rebates that we were offering for electric vehicles. They're taking away all of the movement toward green energy, all those subsidies, claiming that any business that needs subsidies shouldn't be in business. To which I point out the obvious. Renewable energy has received $350 billion in subsidies in the last 10 years. Over that same amount of time, fossil fuel industries have received $2.5 trillion with a T dollars in subsidies. By your own logic, the first companies to go would be ExxonMobil, and every other American oil and gas company. Why are we propping them up while they price gouge us at the pump? Because they can afford to bribe the regime to kill assistance for clean energy. We should stand up against that. They are killing our future for profit, and we should be able to stand up against that. And you should be able to have that discussion with your friends. Nobody wants the higher electricity bills that are already hitting us. Nobody wants a higher price on gasoline that is already hitting us. Nobody wants higher tariffs that are already hitting us. They are destroying our economy, all for the sake of Donald John Trump, the Mad King. We need to vote to get some sort of check on this person's power. And that's if we have a free and fair election. They're going to do everything they can to stop us from doing it. So we have to do everything we can to protect it. All right? That's your mission. Learn. Learn about voting in the United States. Learn about voting in wherever you live. Your community, your state, your city, your county. Learn about it. It's worth it. And it does affect you. Every vote matters. And even though they're gerrymandering the bejesus out of everything, every vote will matter in a low turnout midterm election with an incredibly unpopular president who's passed an incredibly unpopular spending bill, who continues to do incredibly unpopular things like destroy what used to be our country. That's going to do it for me. I am hot as hell. I'm sweating bullets over here. It's probably really good for weight loss for me, which I could do. I do want to share this little fun fact with you. I bought a brand new pair of white tennis shoes. Yeah. And a pair of, dark tennis shoes, which is what I wear all the time. But I bought a brand new pair of white tennis shoes for me to wear every once in a while, just when I'm feeling saucy. And I got to be honest with you, if you buy yourself a new pair of white tennis shoes, it really does make you feel good. There's just something about how clean they are. I don't know. I've also experienced the same thing with like bright colored shoes. But I haven't bought a pair of bright colored shoes in ages, like a bright green or a bright pink or an orange. Yeah, I used to have a pair of orange slip-on Vans that when they were brand new were so awesome. I believe the color was tangerine. So buy some nice shoes and feel good about yourself if you need it. And I did need it. And I got the shoes and I feel great about the shoes. Nothing else. Anyway, be good humans, okay? Thank you for listening. Share this with a friend. Be good humans. It's the very least we can do. Please, please, please share this with a friend, okay? Until next time, thank you so very much. Love you. Ciao.